Sorry for the background noise. My parents are working in the basement. Check someone real quick. All right. Hey, MA11480. So as you guys are coming in, getting settled here, we're going to talk about daylight savings and Indiana's time zone. Excuse the background noise. Hi, quick controllers. How is everybody doing today? If you guys like to see your comments being put up on this chat overlay. Oh. This is a new feature from Restream. It's fine, I have a lot of noise all the time, even in my podcasts. Yeah. All right. We will get... I like it. Thanks. So, today, this is episode 6 of the ICT Movement. So I'm going to tell you why I am against daylight savings and for Central Standard Time year-round. So the reason for that being is that there are more heart attacks, strokes, car accidents, other effects of sleep deprivation, inconvenient adaptations of our biological clocks, and it eliminates dark mornings, you name it. So as it turns out, there are more side effects to daylight saving time than benefits. So I'm going to share my screen, application window, Chrome tab might be. I hope you all can see it right now. I'm going to show you a time right now. So this is the current time. This is what time it is right now in Chicago, basically. Central Standard Time. And we need this because, let's look here. Illinois, Indiana. So Indiana is in the Eastern time zone right now, but when we go into daylight saving time, all these times will occur again. When March 14th comes around, twilight will start 7:28:50, and the sun will finish rising at 7:55 a.m. and the sun will be at 7:51 p.m. May be great for some people, but it really isn't. We will go into April. So this is when the times start getting better after a few weeks. We'll go to May. This is when it starts getting better in Eastern Standard Time. Do I have any questions so far? I guess I don't. I'm gonna keep going here. There we go. So Friday, we're going to go to June 2021, to the longest day, which is June 21st, some say, and June 20th, some say. Yeah. So this is the longest day of the year. Well, these 2 days. The sun finishes rising at 6:16 a.m. 57. This third section stands for seconds, and 9:16:25 p.m. This is late. This is very late, and this is not good because this is in the Atlantic Standard Time Zone, which is another reason why I am against daylight saving time. Since we are in the Eastern Standard Time Zone right now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So what you have to know is that I already mentioned earlier, Indiana is in the Eastern Standard Time Zone, and when we go into daylight saving time, we will be in the Atlantic Standard Time Zone, and that is 2 hours ahead on what we actually should be in standard time. Wouldn't it be nice to have some consistency? Excuse me. Wouldn't it be nice to have consistency year-round with time, being in the Central Standard Time Zone year-round? That's what we are. When we go into daylight savings in Eastern Standard Time, we will be in another time zone, which is Central Standard Time. No, excuse me, Atlantic Standard Time. We're not in the Atlantic Standard Time. We're in Central Standard Time. And daylight savings actually interferes with nature, because back hundreds of years ago, or back in the 1800s, people used the sun as the highest. They use true noon as when the sun is at the highest point of the day. And we need that here in Indiana, but we don't. When we go into Atlantic Standard Time, the true noon would be, I don't know, 1:47, for example. And that is almost 2 hours off of the true noon. And that's not good. If we were in Central Standard Time year round, if we were just going to go into Central Standard Time tomorrow, we're setting our clocks 1 hour for the last time, it would feel so weird, especially adapting to it. I'm gonna give you a little history. When my mom was young, back in the 70s, she would get up at 6 a.m. when it was Central Daylight Time or Eastern Standard Time. And that's not very much of a problem, because as long as you're in the right time zone and you're in Central Time, you should be fine. But especially if you're in the wrong time zone, daylight savings has side effects, because it eliminates bright mornings, which are very, very crucial for biological clocks. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to use my watch, for example. So right here, it is 7:08 Atlantic Standard Time, which Indiana is going to be in tomorrow. For those daylight savings like I am, switch your clocks 1 hour ahead now so that you don't lose an hour of sleep. It's my tip. There are other people that will suggest this, and yeah. I'm going to give you I'm going to share my screen again here. I'm going to give you a chart to look at. So this is one of our charts right now, if we were going to have consistency in our country. But there are other charts that I'm going to show you in a little bit. Let's actually take a look at these right now. So, as I mentioned earlier, let's look at this chart. This is what it will look like tomorrow. Illinois will be in the Eastern Standard Time. New Mexico in the Central Standard Time, and California in the Mountain Time Zone. But listen, please listen. We're not in the Atlantic Time Zone. We're in Central Standard Time Zone, like I mentioned earlier. Now, we will go back. There it goes. So we look at this one. Look at this chart here. This is what it looks like geographically back in the, well, almost back in the early 1900s, 1918. Congress repealed that in 1919, 1 year later. And that's why we called it the Roaring Twenties, as people were, and business were booming, and people were having a great time. And my great-grandfather lived through the Roaring Twenties. I bet through the Central Standard Time Zone. But in the 1940s, FDR implemented a term called wartime, which is daylight saving time. But there was someone who traveled to Indiana and Arizona back and forth, and he prevented daylight savings in those areas. And my grandmother taught me that. Let's go to another chart. I'm not really going to get into that. That was just a notification from my news. I don't want to get into this right now because I want to stay simple. Standardized time. This map is a little bit complicated because it can't much. So propose more correct time zones. So according to this map for Ohio, they are doing a good job here. There would be a little bit of complications, especially Ohio being a border state. And Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama are all in the Central Time Zone. Well, almost all of it. Almost all of Tennessee. And these smaller sections. And Maine is in the right time zone. There's the smaller section in the Atlantic time zone. So we should be in this time zone year-round, especially in Indiana. Because when we have real consistency in Indiana, which meaning being in the right time zone, not changing our clocks twice a year, our biological clocks would be way more consistent. And that is what we want. Better sleep and better wake-up times in Indiana. And let's look at another chart. If we don't want any complications. I'm not sure if I want to look at this right now. But, well, this is the chart that I showed you earlier. This is Ohio being a border state, naturally. And this one, reality, time zone boundaries actually vary during the year. I'm going to read this paragraph. Finally, in reality, actual time zone boundaries vary throughout the year based on the equation of time. With the boundary map of this post, the average annual boundaries, the animation below shows the actual time zone boundaries through the year, red lines, as well as the average annual position, line gray lines. Note that I included annotations for the Atlantic time zone in the upper right, which moves into northeast during much of the year, and the Atlantic time zone in the upper left, Alaska, which moves into the coastal regions of the Pacific Northwest early in the year, when the equation of time curve so above is that its lowest points in January-February. I apologize for how small this video is. Let me know if you want to see a larger version. Here's a larger video for it. October 31st update. if each state, instead of a county, is assigned to a time zone on a greater proportion of an area of each time in the actual natural zones. This is what time zones would look like for the continental US. We will look at this. So this is what it would look like. So the light blue is central, the red is eastern, and pink is mountain, and purple is Pacific. That was some alliteration there. Purple is Pacific. Yeah. So magenta is mountain, and so Georgia would be in the central time zone because it is the majority of Georgia is in the central time zone. And let's look at Florida. So if I look at it sideways, Florida is very debatable because there is a split in Central Time and Eastern Time. But we cannot make Florida two states because it has to be jointed together. I don't know. And if we were going, I'm going to show you another chart related to this. And, oh, why am I saying and? So I'm going to read this paragraph to you. Oklahoma would likely have an exception to move to the mountain time zone to align with its north and south neighbors, while either Florida or Georgia would switch to avoid Florida's isolation from the rest of the eastern time zone states. An exception to move Florida 65% to the central time zone would make more sense than moving Georgia 76 central to the eastern time zone. So if I were to do, I don't know, if it was summertime, I would recommend Florida doing daylight saving time, but it's just an option for them. And Oklahoma, wow, look at this. Oklahoma is a border state just like Ohio is naturally. So if I were president, I would advise, wait a second. Maybe it would not be a good idea because there's this small section of Oklahoma being in the mountain time zone. So it would make sense for Oklahoma to be in the mountain time zone. And Texas should be in the mountain time zone because the majority of Texas here is in the mountain time zone. But it's in the central time right now, and that is not good for them. Want to know why? Because I read a comment from a YouTuber saying that it doesn't get light until 9 a.m. That's not good. Any questions so far? No? I will keep going. So if I were president of the United States, so this section is Eastern, blue is Central, magenta or pink is Mountain, and purple is Pacific. I would move Florida and Georgia in the Central time zone. It would make more sense for consistency. And Ohio would be in the Central time zone. And a little bit more is in the Central time zone. Just a hint. I'm going to show you some more charts in this website, Nick's Best Weather Blog. Thank you, Nick's Best Weather Blog, for really, well, so Nick's Weather's best weather blog if you're watching this. I'm using this website for my video. Seeing how identical the last Eastern time zone looks like the map above the 1886 when the time zones were first created. Yeah. I'm going to show you the sunrises now on what it will look like. EDT. This is the time that it will be tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier, 7:57. And it irritates our Hoosiers because it's going to get dark again after a while. It's going to get dark again once we move back into daylight saving time. And the worst thing is that it lasts longer than standard time. That's not good. Sunrise in Ohio, 7:45. It would make more sense for it to be in the central time zone. Sunrise, Pennsylvania, 7:13. Yeah, if you're like me and my mother, I wish that daylight saving did not exist. And I watched a Rumble video saying that one senators introduced a bill to eliminate daylight savings nationwide. And a few states already pushed to abolish daylight saving time. And there has to be a one-size-fits-all in this state. In Indiana. Oh, look at this. 7:09. New Jersey is much better off in the Eastern time zone because the sun rises around 7:09. Well, at 7 o'clock around. It's not exact, though. I'm going to look at Illinois' time zone. Look at this. It's much better right here. But I would say in the central time zone, central standard time. So let's pretend that daylight savings doesn't exist. So we have 6, 5. Pretending the 6 is 5. 4. 4. Here's a crazy thing. The sun wouldn't start rising until 3:42. Well, 3:41 in the morning. That is early. That's what happens when you're in the right time zone. If you study the geography of the Earth. 7:29 and 8:03 p.m. This gives early risers an advantage because early risers will have the time to wind down and get up early the next day. And that's what we need here in Indiana. No daylight saving time in the right time zone. I'm going to jump back to the chat. So do I have any questions right now? No questions? So, no questions. I'm going to show the clock again. 5:23. That's what we really need to be in for Central Time. I only one vote yesterday doing Standard Time, and I agree with that vote. it would have been really, 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 really nice to stay in Central Standard Time year-round, especially in Indiana. So, I don't know what else to do. I do have a question to ask. So, maybe not. Feel free to give me any questions that you have. Wait. I do have one more thing to show you. Let's look at this clock for a little bit. Stand with the... I'm going to give her a little time with a moment of silence to look at that Central Standard Time clock. All right, that's enough. All right, so I'm going to show you how to contact our representatives. Okay, I'm still sharing my screen. What's your question? I was going to ask, what time zone are you living in right now? Time zone you will be transitioning to. So if you live in the Eastern Time Zone, you will transition into the Atlantic Time Zone, as I am doing. If you live in Central Time, you'll go into Eastern Standard, Mountain, Central, and Pacific, Mountain, and so on. I'm going to tell you how to contact your state representative or senator. So you go to iga.in.gov and you find your legislature, and you would click on this link here. And here you would type in your street address, city, state, zip code. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a little bit so that I don't expose my personal information. I just finished typing in my information. I'm going to share my screen again. So right here, these are my state senator, Ecuador, Kerry Hamilton, my congressional leader, Victoria Sparks, Senator Todd Young, and Senator Mike Braun. These are the U.S. leaders. You can give them a phone call by voicemail or email them, whatever works for you. And if you want to right now, tell them that you want Central Standard Time year-round in Indianapolis, as it is the right and original time zone for Indiana. So that's why I created this movement, so that Indiana can be in its rightful time zone, period. Because we don't want any more dark mornings or bright evenings, because bright evenings have side effects. It takes away time for early risers to wind down, and they're having to adapt to a new time zone, which is Atlantic Standard Time here in Indiana tomorrow. And I don't want this happening to our Hoosiers. I want what is best for Indiana, don't you? Well, you get what I mean. So anyways, these are my leaders from the legislative branch. And you can ask any laws that you want passed. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a little bit. I guess Texas in Central Standard Time, I think. That is correct, that Texas is in Central Standard Time. That being said, I'm going to pull up a time zone map. Not what I want. This is what we have right now. And people are better off living in this area because it's naturally in Central Time Zone. But as I mentioned earlier, Texas, the majority of Texas, according geographically, is mostly in the Mountain Time Zone. This is bright mornings. I don't mean to be offensive, one. So for me, when I'm in Eastern Standard Time in the winter time, I get dark mornings. And this is the time zone we have to live by. And I don't want that happening to our Hoosiers. So that's what I wanted to do. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'm going to legislation by subject. Share my screen again. So this is legislation by subject index for the 2020 session. And each subject is divided in letters by categories, and I'm going to go to T, which stands for time zones. Here we go. Look at this. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is a problem we have here in Indiana, because when our representatives or senators don't listen to us, things get bad. And back in 2018, 2010 or 15, well, in general, there were a few bills that tried to get Indiana back to Central Time, but it was dead. This is not the type of representation that we want here in Indiana. We need the representation that we need here. That's what I wanted to show that's what I wanted to show you. If you have any questions, just leave them in the chat on the side. I don't have much to say. If I don't have any questions in the next 5 minutes, I can go ahead and end this live stream. One thing that I want to say is make sure to get the word out about Indiana, about being in the wrong time zone. One announcement that I also want to make is that I'm running for state representative in 2024. That's what I'm going. If nothing changes, I'm gonna have to. Hi is my only thing to say. Hi MA11480. So the reason I'm running for state representative is that. Wait, really? Yeah, I'm gonna run for state representative because there are issues that need to be resolved, and there are issues that haven't been resolved yet. For example, this is the biggest topic that I have issues with. Indiana is not in the right time zone. It is in the Eastern Standard Time when it's supposed to be the Central Time Zone. And with daylight savings, that interferes with nature because we can't tell the time by the sun being at our highest point. And I'm going to show you something here. Solar noon. Indianapolis, perfect. Let's look at June. Oh, am I not sharing my screen? I'm not. There we go. Let's look at the sunrise. There we go. So solar noon is true noon, which is the sun's highest point. Why am I looking? This is Illinois. There we go. So let's look at June 21st, and this is when true noon occurs. 1:46:41 p.m. Let's subtract that by 2 hours to the Central Standard Time. 11:46. And that is about the time that we need. We will go to July. August. This would be so weird if we were Central Standard Time. And solar noon is going to be different. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. Now we'll Illinois. So their solar noon is 1 hour off. Solar noon is what we need to tell noon. Look at this. This is what we need here. Being in the right time zone makes true noon almost at the top of the sky. That's what I want to show you. Well, I don't have much to say now. It's 7:39 Atlantic time right now, which is I have to live by. And it's still pretty bright out. Any other questions? So I have one assignment to turn in, and maybe I can film more episodes about daylight saving time. My time is 5:30. Yeah, that is much earlier than. I wish I was in that time year round. 5:39. And this is what I need to share my screen a bit. So this is the time that Indiana has to live by. And it's so disappointing because, as I mentioned earlier, there were bills that tried to change our time zone, but they failed. The General Assembly didn't want to hear it. We don't have the same type of representation that we have anymore. And if that doesn't change, I am running for state representative. Stop sharing my screen. I love talking about time. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Well, it would be nice to have more people watching this. I'm not so popular. So, you know? Since there are no other questions, I am going to end this live stream. If you liked this live stream, give this a thumbs up. Subscribe and comment for more videos like these for our ICT movement. I think I should call it the ICST movement, which stands for Indiana Central Standard Time Movement. But I'm going to keep it ICT movement. So, have a good day, night, if this becomes a video. Guys.